Anywhere that cannabis travels needs to be on camera. By state regulations and compliance, there has to be 2 delivery agents in the vehicle. So, when one gets out to make a delivery, another agent has to be in the vehicle. And by state regulations, we have to tell every customer that they're being recorded on body camera. We have to tell them at the point of transaction. And we've been extremely thoughtful about safety for our drivers. And we train our delivery drivers that if you ever feel unsafe, then the delivery can be canceled. Okay, we are only delivering cannabis.
Cannabis industry has seen a lot of growth in the United States. So we estimate nearly $20 billion of legal sales was made in the US in 2020. That's up about 50% from 2019. In addition to the illegal sales, we estimate there's about $45 billion of illicit sales still in the US. Overall, at federal legalization in the next 10 to 15 years, we estimate 2035, we believe a mature market could represent a $90 billion cannabis market legally. So from a delivery perspective, we think that's also going to continue to grow with it. Within the United States today, 18 states today allow for delivery that are medical. And then there's also another 11 states on the adult use side that allow for delivery. Massachusetts is allowing for delivery, providing consumers with another avenue to purchase the product versus just going into the store.
Freshly Baked was born in 2018, and it was founded on the premise of helping veterans honestly sleep. And we're also the first home delivery company on the East Coast. At Freshly Baked, we're allowed to deliver everything we can manufacture in-house and what we buy wholesale. At Freshly Baked, I can buy bulk flour and then I can package it while it's here. I can't buy product that's already packaged up and finished, bring it here and then just put it on my menu and mark it up like a normal retailer would. All of our funding was raised through friends and family. We also have $150,000 in loans from current investors. That was just enough to get us up and going. Because cannabis is federally illegal, your normal lending avenues has been tough. There are loans out there that you can get though for equipment, but a lot of those loans come with high costs because they know that it's cannabis. So it's been very challenging because things can change in a month.
Regulation and compliance is one of the most important aspects in the cannabis space, and that starts with the metric system. Metric is it's an online portal. It tracks the cannabis plant from when it goes into the soil, and so there is a metric number assigned to a seed. That seed turns into a plant, it gets another metric number, and then as it gets processed throughout its journey to a gummy, that's tracked all the way through. All of our inspectors across Massachusetts at the Cannabis Control Commission are checking metric daily, and when they see issues, they will call the facility and try to understand any sort of discrepancies because it is tracked that closely and monitored that closely. In Massachusetts, we've been able to do everything basically through online. So banking, which has been great. Wire transfers, those kind of things, they still work. Most of our suppliers on the wholesale side will pay with checks or wires. For the customer-facing side on delivery though, it's a little bit more complicated. We can only do transactions with debit cards. If you don't have a debit card, we do have another platform called AeroPay, which basically does an ACH transfer from your account into ours. And it's very important for us to avoid cash as much as we could for safety reasons. We don't want our drivers out there on the street with a van full of cannabis and a bunch of cash.
We are the only state throughout the country who has equity baked into our legislation. So we're mandated to create an industry that's inclusive. So there's a 3-year exclusivity period where only social equity applicants can apply for delivery licenses. And there's 3 main criteria for eligibility, and you have to meet at least one. So the first one is if you live in areas that have been disproportionately harmed by cannabis prohibition and enforcement. The other is if you have any sort of drug conviction on your record. And then the third is if you are married to or the child of someone who has a prior conviction. The idea is to get to individuals who have been penalized by prohibition enforcement and get them involved in the industry. And when this exclusivity period ends, they have solidified their position within the market. So it creates a low capital cost avenue into the industry, and it also theoretically curtails the illicit or legacy market.
This is the spot at the facility where all the delivery vehicles are loaded. We have cameras outside of the facility. By regulation, the vehicle needs to be loaded on camera. This is the secure storage bin that the product has to be stored in and locked while we're driving. It's the first part of the whole process when the delivery driver gets there. We ask for an ID, we look at the ID, and then from there we start the transaction. After the payment is made, the driver comes back to the vehicle, hands everything to the other agent, then goes to the back of the vehicle, gets the product, and then brings that to the customer's door. When we first started out, it was 3 to 5 deliveries a day, which doesn't sound great, but that lasted probably a week. And then we went to 5 to 10. Now, a couple months in, we're at 10 to 15. Last week was a busy week. We actually almost every day was 15 to 20. We're hoping we can get to 5 to 10 an hour.
How will small, medium, and large businesses coexist in a federal environment? We think a good amount will still be left up to the states, even if it was federally legalized. So regulators, both at the state and federal level, when they're looking to come out with bills, they want to make sure that it's not just dominated by big cannabis, as they might call it. But you've already had the Uber CEO indicate that once cannabis is federally legal, he will look into the space. We do think that major businesses are going to eventually get involved into the cannabis industry. The effect that it has, again, depends on how that happens from the regulatory level. So it could come via acquisition, that could come in, organically.
Regardless of how big you are, it doesn't matter. You have to abide by these limits. You can only have 3 retail licenses, and you can only have up to 2 delivery licenses. You can't create sort of a monopoly where you are at every corner, you're like the Starbucks of Massachusetts. It just can't happen because we've created that.